try to be level-headed here at Dave on Jays, and I never want to jump the gun in terms of emotional analysis insofar as possible. But I think we have to admit at this point that John Schneider is a genius and probably manager of the year. Because the Jays win again, this time by a score of 10-3 over the heavily depleted St. Louis Cardinals in the first of a quick two-game set at the Sky Dome. Let's get into it and talk a little bit about the end of the Boston series, too. So last time we checked in, Alek Manoah was facing the Boston Red Sox in Fenway, and predictably, that went very well. The phrase that's going around right now in baseball meme circles is, he's got that dog in him. And yeah, Manoah, I think, is the dog. Everyone else has Manoah in him. This guy is the prototype. He's the real deal. Watching him bark at the lesser lights of the Boston Red Sox, guys like Franchi Cordero and Bobby Dahlbeck, who strike fear into the hearts of precisely nobody, that was great. I could watch that on loop all day. I actually might have watched that on loop for quite a distressingly large amount of time. Anyway, he's also really good at baseball, and he held down a thoroughly lackluster Boston team for a good stretch. I think 6 innings plus. He did a great job. He set the tone in the... This guy is what you want an ace to be. It's not merely that he goes out there and he pitches well. That's good enough, honestly, but it's more than that. It's that he is kind of like the Patronus of the team. When things are looking very, very poor, when things are going badly, Manoah just comes out there and shows you the team's heart and just blinds you with how much this team wants to win. It's very exciting. It's very good quality to have in a starting pitcher, especially one as young as he is. He's my favorite Blue Jay. When I get a Blue Jays jersey next, it's going to be a Manoah jersey, but I need to get in line on that one because, he's made some fans this year. Anyway, Blue Jays win that one 4-1, doing just enough offense to win against a really dispirited Boston Red Sox team. I really do believe that it's not just how well you play that determines the result or the quality of your opponent, but also when you face that opponent. I mean, we faced the Astros, all 6 games of our series against the Astros were at the beginning of the year when they were still scuffling a little bit, and we were still scuffling a little bit, and we were able to take 4 games out of the 6 that we played them. I think if we, or anybody, was playing the Astros right now, I don't think anyone would be able to take 4 games out of 6 against those guys. They look like real World Series threats. So facing the Astros when we did was as important as the composition of our team when we did. Similarly here, facing Boston during their big swell in June would have had very different results, I bet, rather than facing them now when they're absolutely face-planting. I don't know what's happened with that team. I think part of it is just they can't pitch right now. I mean, 28 runs, that is a lot. But just for whatever reason, everybody seems to be down all at the same time, and the Blue Jays absolutely capitalize on that in the whole series. And in the third game of the series, winning that one by a score of 8-4 with Ross Stripling on the hill. Stripling, kind of like Gausman in the first game of the series, wasn't at his sharpest, and again, did not have to be. The offense did more than enough to cover it, putting 5 runs on the board in the first inning. Like, talk about kicking a team when they're down. They're already staring a sweep in the face after being historically laughed out of the building in Game 1, held down and barked at by a young ace in Game 2, and then getting a 5 spot put up on them before they even get a chance to bat in Game 3. Oof, that's gotta feel not super great. And it looks great on them. Oh my god, I love beating up on Boston sports teams in any sport. I don't care. It's not rational, and it is all about emotion, but that's... Sports fandom is supposed to be about that to a certain extent, and boy, beating Boston sports at any time, it's beyond anything. It's visceral. It's just... pardon me. So yeah, Stripling didn't have to be sharp. He got all the offense that he would need before the Red Sox even got a chance to hit against him, which is fantastic. The Blue Jays cruise to a never-in-doubt 8-4 win. A really big exclamation point on a massive sweep to continue a hot stretch that they then got a day off before carrying that back up north to Toronto to face the St. Louis Cardinals, who were heavily shorthanded. And I mean, this is a very interesting situation in Major League Baseball where we get kind of like a peek into players' lives and the way that they think and the way that they conduct themselves in a way that we've never really seen before. Every time there's a player who can't play in Canada because he couldn't be arsed to get the shot, or because he was scared of needles, or because he's a QAnon anti-vaxxer, or because he's a hippy-dippy California crystal-loving guru type, or whatever it is, there's all these guys in baseball who think they know better than the medical professionals. And like, again, this is kind of like what we saw back during the steroid era too, right? Where guys will just inject themselves with whatever because someone in a back alley bar told them this will make you hit the ball an extra couple feet when you hit it. But they won't put this vaccine that's been heavily tested and is now like 2 years into existence, they won't put that in the body to be able to travel to Toronto to help their team win. And these are not lesser players. This is Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. Yikes, these are the two best players on the Cardinals. Michael Mikolas, who is one of their better pitchers, said he hadn't gotten the shot. He would also like a 4-day vacation rather than come up to Toronto. That does not scream will to win to me somehow. Anyway, I bet the Cardinals could use their two best hitters in this one as the Jays got out to a 3-1 lead. The Cardinals were able to scratch back, and then the big blast. So first, big ups to Matt Chapman, who had a couple of hits to score runs, but the one right in the big scoring inning was with 2 out after Lourdes Gurriel had run into a second out at second base in a terrible base running play that, rather than first and third with 1 out, left the Blue Jays with a runner on third and 2 out. And not very long ago, this team would have absolutely squandered that opportunity with no runs across, but not this time. Matt Chapman, whose numbers have been steadily going north for the better part of a month now, comes through with a clutch single to pick up Gurriel. That was huge. But then, maybe even more impressive was Espinal and then Biggio refusing to make outs to load the bases for George Springer. And is this the beginning of the summer of George 2.0? That would be great. I would be very excited to usher in the summer of George 2.0. Like, honestly, it really is a thing about George Springer. He just has this feeling for the moment. He was up there at 3-0. He had the green light. He swung at garbage. It was a terrible swing at a terrible pitch. It should have been ball 4 to walk in a run, but he was up there hacking. But somehow, even then, there was this feeling of, no, George is going to do something here. And something he absolutely did, hitting a grand slam, absolutely crushing it to dead left center field to give the Blue Jays an 8-3 lead. They would win 10-3. It was an absolute laugher. What a moment. But I actually want to use this moment to talk a little bit about Jose Barrios. So this guy, Junior Fernandez, that the Cardinals had run out there to clean up Jordan Hicks's mess and then totally did not do it. He had trouble finding the zone. He was kind of like all over the place. He had some pretty good stuff, lots of movement. His pitches looked absolutely nasty, and he's throwing it in there like 98, 99. I can see why you'd think he would be a very effective major league reliever. The thing is, in this particular case, and it was kind of predictable too, he ended up having to throw a fastball at 3-2. And it was with movement, but it was like 99 with movement, so a technically nasty pitch. But the thing about that movement is, it went right to George's barrel. Like, if that 99 was absolutely straight, I think George maybe gets under that a little bit, or doesn't do quite as much damage, or something else might have happened there. But the movement of that fastball went right directly to where the center of George's barrel. I mean, it couldn't have been better teed up for him if you tried. And at 99, he doesn't have to swing very hard for that ball to travel an awful long way. So this is kind of what I want to talk about Jose Barrios too. You look at his pitches, and they're moving all over the place, and they do these crazy corkscrews, and they bend and they twist, and they look like they're going to go 15 feet outside the zone, and then they land right in the middle of the plate, and you're, well, how does he move a ball like that? How does physics allow this? The Cardinals weren't able to really torch him. They weren't really able to hurt him that much with this. He gave up 3 runs over 5 2/3, which I guess is fine. Like, it did lower his ERA, which says something about the way his season has largely gone. But there were several times where he had got a guy to 2 strikes, or got in a position where he had to throw a strike, and he would throw this crazy looping kind of breaking ball that goes right to the middle of the plate, right to the guy's barrel. And it's like, okay, what was all of that movement for? It was a technically very good pitch that resulted in a hit, and that happens all the time to Jose. It's like the equivalent of when a guy tells, like, what in retrospect was a very clever and well-crafted joke that no one laughs at. And, like, maybe later on someone can reflect back on that moment and say, yeah, that was a clever and well-constructed joke, with, like, the level-faced, stone-faced emoji just Whereas, like, you know, a 10-year-old just making a fart sound at the right time can completely break up a room, right? Like, it's just because something was technically well constructed and clever doesn't mean it gets a laugh. Just because something is stupid doesn't mean it won't get a laugh. So I'm saying, Jose, sometimes just go with the fart sound. It's okay to challenge a guy with a 95-mile-an-hour heater when you need a strike in a key moment. Which, I mean, you could also just make a fart sound at him. That might be effective too. I'm not saying necessarily try that next time, but I kind of want to see it, so maybe do it. This has been Cutting Edge Pitching Analysis from me, Dave on Jays. You're welcome, YouTube. Anyway, Jays are now 7 wins in a row, 8-1 in the John Schneider era. I was kidding before about him being a genius. He seems like he is doing exactly the same things that he was doing when he had Charlie Montoyo as his puppet, apparently, because Schneider was already making all the tactical decisions. So this reads exactly the same way as what the Blue Jays were doing before. It's just now the team is really hitting, so he looks like a friggin' genius. It doesn't take a whole lot of pitching for this team to win because they can score 8, 9, 10 runs in a game without too much difficulty at all. I mean, seriously, 50 runs in 4 ball games. That'll get the numbers going up there. That'll make them look pretty good. And fortunately, the Blue Jays do have some pitching. Manoah and Gausman are both still very much in the run for the Cy Young, by my estimation. Ross Stripling continues to be solid and or better than solid. Jose is good enough, I guess, and then we have the rub. So Max Castillo pitched in this game in relief and looked pretty good, and maybe looked like going forward he's not a starter, but like a half-decent reliever, and you don't really have the same trust in him that you do in other guys, if only because he doesn't have the major league track record, but the eye test tells you, yeah, I think he's looking pretty good back there. But that means for sure that the first game in the Tigers series will be pitched by Yusei Kikuchi. The bad man is back. Apparently, he looked pretty good in his Buffalo Bison's rehab start, so that's fine. And Detroit isn't any great offensive shakes, so that's also fine. And I guess coming up to the trade deadline, which is rapidly approaching, I think it's on the 2nd, which is in less than a week, geez. We need to know for sure what we have in Kikuchi, because if he ain't a starter that you can rely on even a little bit, then he's nothing, and we need to go out and get 2 arms as opposed to just 1 at the trade deadline. And that's, I guess you gotta find that out sooner rather than later, but boy, it makes me nervous. Because best case scenario, is that Kikuchi is, like, serviceable for the rest of the season. Like, I'm saying throw all of his stats that he has right now in his whole Blue Jays tenure, just throw it away. We know they were terrible. We know he went on the DL with, like, they called it a neck strain, but it really was a lack of confidence or an advanced case of succitis, whatever it was. He's now coming back, and it's a fresh start, new manager, new world, it's a new dawn, it's a new day. I'm not feeling that good, but we'll roll with it. You just need to be serviceable. I'm talking about an ERA anywhere south of 5, and I think you roll with him for the rest of the year, which would mean that you need to get 1 arm. I think ideally what you want is both Stripling and Max Castillo to be in the bullpen, because if they're in the bullpen, that really gives you 8 guys that you don't mind putting out there for the most part. Romano, Garcia, Meza, Simber are like your big 4, the guys who you really count on to get big outs. Richards has had an up and down year, but he's been hot lately, so maybe you believe in him. Stripling, better as a long man, I think, rather than as a short spurts guy, but maybe you can find a way to get his stuff to play up in short bursts. And then Castillo, and then I'm assuming they're going to go out and get an arm during the trade deadline. If you don't do anything else, I mean, if you don't make a splash, I mean, every single team that considers itself even on the outside possibility of trying to win the World Series gets at least 1 bullpen arm. And I expect the Blue Jays to do better than that. But at the very least, they're going to get a guy that they can put in the bullpen and sort of count on. And that would bring you to 8 relievers. And in the playoffs, you generally don't really use more than that. Like, you might have, like, your Trent Thornton, Jeremy Beasley type there to soak things up in the event of a disastrous start where in the playoffs and you're down, like, 12-2 or whatever, and you just need someone just to soak up some damage and think about tomorrow. Okay. But for the most part, you're not going to use more than 8 guys in real leverage situations, right? And let's be serious, we can count on Kikuchi just to do this little bit because there is no way that he is going to pitch in the postseason. Like, you'd only need 3, sometimes 4 starters in the playoffs, and you definitely don't need 5. And based on his volatility, you're never going to have that 5th guy be Yusei Kikuchi. And in fact, his volatility means I wouldn't even put him in the bullpen in the playoffs at all. I could see a situation where we ride him as the 5th starter all the way through the rest of the season, and then leave leave him off the playoff roster entirely. So in an ideal world, the Blue Jays go out and get a starting pitcher and 1 to 2 relief arms, and then that's probably good enough. They could probably do that without emptying out the whole farm. Again, we don't need like a big-time ace. I'm not saying go out there and get Nathan Eovaldi or do it. I'm saying just like go find a reasonable arm. Someone who can take the place of Stripling and allow him to go to the bullpen where he's better suited anyway. Have Kikuchi kind of ride out the rest of the year as a mediocre fifth starter, which most teams, even a lot of playoff teams, have a mediocre fifth starter, if we're honest. And then one, maybe 2 bullpen arms that you can really trust. It's hopefully guys with swing and miss stuff like high octane heat out of the bullpen, which is really the only thing that we're missing, because we really only have Romano that does that. I don't think that should break the bank. I don't think that'll really cause any huge problems to do that. I think that there are enough teams that are starting to fall apart and fall out of it by the trade deadline. I think that that's the kind of return that the Blue Jays could reasonably do without harming their future progress or without emptying out the prospect capital entirely. So Ross, if you're listening, and you're not, but if you are, go get it done. Anyway, tomorrow the Blue Jays go for a mini sweep against the still depleted St. Louis Cardinals. You take Arenado and Goldschmidt out of this lineup and they don't seem to have a whole lot of thump, do they? It's a good look for them. They should keep it up. I will see you tomorrow at the conclusion of that game, and we will see what befalls this team as the trade deadline looms. This team is red hot right now, so if they can pick up some steam, oh baby, this could be a lot of fun as we get into August. I'm really hoping for that Summer of George 2.0. In the meantime, that's it for me. Thanks very much for watching this video and this channel. Like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I will see you tomorrow. I promise. Good night.